In today's project spotlight, I'm going to be talking about this Pojagi patchwork cushion cover. What I made, how I made it, and what I learned. Welcome to Epida Studio. My name is Elizabeth and I help you make beautiful things with quilting, Pojagi, and embroidery. So this is a little cushion cover that I made, and today I'm going to be talking about this project and explaining all the details. So the first thing is what I made. So this is a cover. The front of it is patchwork, and then the back of it has a little slot. You can see that you can put a pillow insert into there. It is empty right now, just while I show it to you. And this is made with traditional Pojagi patchwork seams. So you can see that it's stitched with this gold thread and the stitches are visible. So it is not something that is pieced and then I stitched on top of the seams like crazy quilting or something where you stitch over top of the seams. This stitching that you see is the stitching that holds the pieces together. So this is a traditional Korean hand stitching technique. And when you put your pieces together, you use an overcast stitch or a whip stitch. And so if you want to see how to do this, I do have a tutorial. You can click the link below to see how that type of patchwork is done. And this was a piece that I made with fabric that my Pojagi teacher in Korea gave to me when I was returning back to Canada. She gave me a bunch of scraps from her stash, which I was so happy to receive. And this was one of the things I made when I returned to Canada. And so because I was using scraps from a stash, that meant I was limited in what I had. I only had a certain amount and size of different colors. So I had to work with what I had. I couldn't just plan a project and then get the fabric for that. I had to work with the fabric that I had. So this is silk fabric and silk thread. Now these seams, they are not the reversible seams. They are the line seams. So if you can see on the inside, if I look at the inside, you can see the raw edges that the seams are open. So it's all raw edges on the inside. And then for the back of this piece, this is also pieced. I did not have pieces that were large enough to make a full panels for the back of the pillow. So I took two pieces and I stitched those together. Now you'll notice that these pieces aren't even rectangles, they're trapezoids in shape. And that's a really common shape in Pojagi patchwork. And the reason why that is a common shape is because in hanbok, traditional Korean clothing, the skirts are made on it with an angle, like A-line skirts. And so that means on the fabric, the scraps that are left over in the fabric are long kind of wedge shapes. And so trapezoid is a natural shape that would come from the scraps that are left over. So these pieces were long kind of wedges, and so that lent itself to this. Now on the flap of this cushion cover, I didn't hem it, I just left the selvage edge. And so that meant I didn't have to hem it, the edge was already finished off. And so that was a little bit of a shortcut, but I think it looks really nice. I don't think that was a problem at all. So when I was doing the patchwork on the front of this, I had all my little squares, I stitched them together and put the rows together. And then when I put on the border, you'll notice it's not a normal border where you put on the sides and then the top and bottom. The border is made with partial seams. So that meant I had to put this piece on and then just stitch it a little bit, and then I could put on this piece and then this piece, and then finish this piece. So it's a partial seam. There's no seam that goes all the way across the piece. So each border piece has one little seam and then it goes to the edge. So that is a little bit different compared to how normal borders are put on. And then when I had the front piece together and the back piece together, then I put them right sides together, and then I just machine stitched around the edge to hold it together. So this edge seam, that was stitched on a sewing machine. I didn't hand stitch that. Now, what did I learn from this piece? The one thing I learned was to be flexible with the fabric that I had. As I said, I was making this with scraps, and so I just had to use what I had. So that meant piecing the back, which I think was a really great option, even though normally if I was making a pillow, I wouldn't have pieced the back. I would have just used solid panels. The other thing that I had to do to be flexible with the fabric that I had was I had to make these borders a little bit smaller than I normally would have. I think normally if I was designing something, I would have made the borders a little bit wider, but this narrow fabric was what I had, so it's what I used, and I think it turned out fine. Also in this middle section, I didn't have enough of just the green fabric to make it just green and white, so I had to add on these red squares, but I only had enough red fabric to add in 4. So that added a nice little highlight to that design, but it was based on using the fabric that I had. So sometimes just using the fabric that you have can help stretch your creativity, and you can come up with a really nice design. To see more things that are made with these traditional hand stitching techniques, you can check out my gallery, and I also have tutorials for how to make it. And I have a whole resource page that has links to other Pojagi teachers and designers that will give you a lot of inspiration. And all that is on my website, epidastudio.com.